Seawalker and Firebroth here in the second chance bracket. And here we go. Game number one, fighting for their tournament lives here. Seawalker777 and Firebroth. We'll see if both of our runners have the Razor Shield manipulation. They most certainly do. Seawalker staying at the door on the right. Firebroth is just looking for where the spawns are. Too early to utilize that nuke there for Seawalker. But it looks to be pretty clean for both of our runners. It is going to be Firebroth with the whole shot. Seawalker not going to be terribly far back. But Firebroth will have it with a mid 40 to an upper 41. So about a second and a half, maybe a little less than that. Let's call it a second and a third. But two reasonably good times coming in to collect power-ups. So let's see what our opening drop is going to be. An orb for Seawalker, rockets for Firebroth, so two good drops here. Let's see if Seawalker can keep the orb healthy here. Getting a little bit dangerous there with those purple shirts. Firebroth getting a Razor Shield to complement those rockets. Now rockets for Seawalker. He'll be able to grab those easily. So good weaponry for both of our runners, but right now no orb for Firebroth. His firing lanes are good, though, so even without the orb, he still has the lead with a 121. Seawalker struggling to finish up this room, still has a few swarmers, does take them down, as well as the Mr. Shrapnels. But Firebroth taking a death in Eat My Shrapnel, so it could be a time penalty. In this room, you want to be done in 42.5 seconds optimally. Seawalker letting the room get to 4 Mr. Shrapnel, so he's going to be losing some time, but now that he's got them down, should have the rest of this room under control, especially with that Razor Shield. 18 of the Mr. Shrapnels you must take down. No more than 4 can be on the screen at any given point. When that happens, that's when you start to bleed time. So we might see that Firebroth could extend that lead even without an orb, but this is the end of the room. He's going to lose time at the end of this room here. So he's got a 209. Seawalker does not have much of that Razor Shield left. He's got all of the swarmers down, and it'll be a 218. So yes, he did gain time. He's cut it to a 9-second lead. Firebroth does get his orb back in total carnage. Ooh, a Razor Shield for Seawalker. That's a good drop. So right now, Seawalker off to a pretty solid start here in total carnage. Firebroth still has his orb. Has not got any weapons to complement that orb. So as long as Seawalker can keep control of the middle and doesn't do anything careless here, he might have a chance to potentially gain some time here. As Firebroth, those swarmers getting a little bit up close and personal. Now Seawalker really living good with those rockets. Spreader now for Firebroth. That's his best drop here in total carnage. More rockets for Seawalker. He's going to have to be patient here so that he doesn't lose that orb. And, oh, those green shirts wanted that orb, but Seawalker's having none of it. More rockets. Oh, but he ran into the mine. Oh, that is disastrous there for Seawalker. It'll be a 314. This run was his, but now it's mine. It'll be a 322, so he could have gained some massive time there if he didn't run into that mine. Bad luck there for Seawalker. Firebroth does not have a weapon to take with him into tank trouble. So we'll see what the opening drop ends up being, but that's tough because Seawalker was on a pretty solid run and would have had rockets to take with him into tank trouble as well. There's a nuke for Firebroth. He could now focus on that second gunner, and down it goes. So let's see if he can keep control of the middle. Invulnerability is good to have when you don't have an orb, so that's going to be something there for Seawalker. One of the gunners is down, and Firebroth loses his orb as the purple shirt is able to clip through it. Seawalker is going to take a death. He'll get to the rockets, though, which should be enough to take out the gunner up there. Rockets for Firebroth. More rockets for Seawalker, so he'll keep the kill count high. More rockets for Firebroth as well, so the vitamin are more rockets for Seawalker. What is that, 5 in a row for the runners now? And that's the end of the room for Firebroth, so he keeps his lead with the 429. He's got a nuke there. Watch out that you don't get run over that mine as well. Focusing on the gunners there. There's another nuke opportunity for Seawalker, and he's going to use it right there. Not the end of the room, though. He still has a long ways to go. There's rockets for Firebroth. Still does not have an arm popped off. And oh, the explosion. So that's a time penalty there for Seawalker. And he's going to be well behind time-wise with a 5:05. But Firebroth has only gotten the first. Oh, but here's an opportunity with an invulnerability. This is going to give him a big lead now. Should be able to utilize the rest of that spreader. And has both arms popped off now. Lobbers for Seawalker. Gonna need to see a spreader of his own. Oh, and he gets zapped. Another spreader for Firebroth. Looking good unless it's parked on. Gets out of the way. Firebroth will easily get to that spreader. Get the rib cage exposed. Should pop the head. Got some manuals in before he got vibrated into, and it's looking real good now for Firebroth. This has been a pretty good Mutoid Man fight. Unfortunately, invulnerability is going to slow him down and enable Seawalker to maybe catch up. Lobbers for both, but still looking good for Firebroth to win this one. There's a spreader. Too late to die for it. So he'll have to manual it. He does get to final form. Might have gotten some transfer damage out of that. Uses the grenades, which could be enough to finish up the fight. He's gonna pick up the lobber anyways, just to make absolutely sure, and down goes Mutoid Man. Firebroth wins game number 1. I'll tell you what, after Seawalker ran into that mine, he just could never get back into this one. That's kind of too bad, because he might have had a shot at a PB. .625 ends up being the time for Firebroth. He'll take game number 1. Head pops off for Seawalker. Trying to get to those grenades. He does. A spreader would be nice. It'd be a good closer. That would have worked perfectly if that would have been a spreader, but unfortunately it's more grenades. Then the invulnerability would have sealed it. He would have been able to get that transfer damage, but instead it's just been nothing but grenades. Final form should be coming soon. There it is. Lots and lots of grenades here. That's good DPS. But he's going to need at least another weapon and maybe another one still with these grenades. But, oh, picked off. There's a key. Come on, Mutoid Man. This game is over. And then he gets a spreader. The worst drop to have in the final form. And another spread. He's getting all the spreaders at absolutely the wrong time. We'll see if this is enough to finish the job. He'll switch it up to rockets. That'll do it. So Seawalker will finish a little bit below 8 minutes. Had a shot to make something real special happen, but when he ran into that mine right before the end of Total Carnage, that really set him back, and he could never recover after that. So Firebroth takes game number 1, best of 5. First to 3 games, wins the match, and we'll move on to face Jackamus. All right, we'll see if Seawalker can equalize this match, or if Firebroth can take a commanding 2-0 lead here. Neither player had a solid Arena 1 there. I mean, Firebroth did not have the best of tank troubles. He was pretty clean otherwise. Seawalker would have been all right going into tank trouble if he didn't run into that mine. We'll see if he can make that proper adjustment in game number 2. That'll get both of these runners ready to go here. They should both have their manipulations here. Seawalker needs to make sure that they're on easy. I want to be playing normal, because if you're playing normal, you have less of a clip to deal with. Only about 3/4 the clip that you would get in easy percent. Hard, you go to half of the clip. Of course, a few players do run hard percent, and it's no joke. It's very difficult because you're constantly needing weapons to keep afloat. Orb is more precious in hard than it is in the other 2 difficulties, just because your weapon clips just do not last very long in hard. So here we go with game number 2. They both have their Razor Shield manipulation. Firebroth will dodge the nuke. You don't want to nuke until the 3rd drop, where you could utilize it if you've had enough of the kills. You want to have, I believe, 52,000 points to utilize that nuke. And Seawalker is going to find himself trailing again. Firebroth with the hole shot. It'll be a low 41. It'll be about a 43 for Seawalker. We had a little bit of lag, unfortunately. Spreader to start for Firebroth. Seawalker had some grenades coming in. He'll get more grenades, so he's fishing for the orb or a better weapon. Vulnerability is not really going to help him. A vulnerability for Firebroth as well. Back-to-back invulnerabilities and an orb on the feet for Firebroth, plus a razor shield. He is sitting pretty now. Can't quite complete the holy trinity of drops, though. But still going to have the lead with a 121, a nuke for Seawalker. Utilizes it before the shrapnels go off. There's a spreader for Seawalker to hopefully finish up the room. It will be, but unfortunately he's going to suffer a time penalty because of that shrapnel explosion. So he's already 23 seconds back and he does not have an orb. Things looking real bad for Seawalker in game number 2. Uses the rest of the spreader to start the room. And we'll use grenades to try to take care of those Mr. Shrapnels. Invulnerability will also help when you don't have that orb. Unfortunately, this room has gotten out of control with the shrapnels, and he's not able to focus on the swarmers. Gotta get a razor shield. Firebroth now into total carnage. Having to do a lot of dancing there on these shrapnels that are being explosive rather quickly. Still no orb for Seawalker here in Eat My Shrapnel. Finally able to finish off the room, but he is quite a bit back. I'd say about 30 seconds. Rockets for Firebroth, but getting a little bit too close there are the purple shirts. Empty drops for both now. Still no orb, almost 3 minutes in, and Seawalker gets clubbed down. There's a nuke. Firebroth going to have a solid time going into the bonus room. It'll be a 302. Not too shabby.
I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah, Seawalker just getting nothing here in this room. I would imagine we'll probably see the swirl of shame on his side. Razor shield, you know, keeping him afloat only for so long. There's an orb. He does get clubbed, but he should be able to get to this orb. Good patience there, knowing that the orb's going to spawn at 2 o'clock. But rockets to start for Firebroth. Will be able to take down both gunners, and now he should be able to focus on the middle of the room. There's that swirl of shame I was referring to when you've spent too much time in total carnage. There's a nuke, which will be a nice little breather for him, but he loses the orb. Oh, a mistake there. It'll be 359. He gets a replacement, but he'll not be able to keep it. There was just very little hope with the purple shirts closing in too quickly. So Firebroth having a little bit of problems here. Maybe Seawalker with a solid opener maybe could gain some time back here. Firebroth will have a 420. Smoke him if you got him.
I'd buy that for $1.
Nuke. That's a solid opener. Really waited for that one, but he does get the first gunner down. Lobbers to start for Firebroth here in the Mutoid Man fight. Nice rocket grab there for Seawalker. He is surrounded by the swarmers, though. A nuke if he can grab it carefully, but no, he wants to focus on the middle, and maybe he should have grabbed that nuke because now it's falling apart again. Firebroth trying to get that first arm popped off. There it is. He's got more lobbers waiting for him. He'll ride it out as long as he can before making that grab. Seawalker does get an orb replacement now. As the second arm now is popped off for Firebroth. Nice nuke grab there for Seawalker. Still not at the end of the room, though. He's more than a minute back. 2 arms popped off for Firebroth, but it's an empty drop right now. There's a spreader, but he won't be able to use any of the invulnerability as Seawalker finishes off the room with the orb in hand, a 533. So he's 73 seconds back as Firebroth tries to do a manual. Got another form off, and now gets another spreader. Should be able to get to final form off of this. Isn't going to get much transfer damage, though. Does get to those grenades in time. Needs one more weapon. It's another spreader. This should do it for Firebroth. And it does. It'll be about 6 minutes and 10 seconds. Very good Mutoid Man fight. Under 2 minutes. Anything under 2 minutes, that's pretty darn good. So Firebroth, 6 minutes and 10 seconds, wins game number 2. Comfortable win once again there for Firebroth. Dealing the consistent damage there with the lobbers. Grenades now for Seawalker. Runs into the mine, unfortunately, so he's going to miss out on those lobbers. As the second arm now pops off. Rockets for Seawalker now. Then gets an invulnerability. Too bad that wasn't a spreader instead of rockets. Well, he gets a spreader, but order of operations game. Oh, and hey, there's an invulnerability. Here's a chance for Seawalker to get some real damage in here. He's got the rib cage. Couldn't get to those lobbers, though, and runs out of spreader. There's an empty drop. Come on, Muto, man. The game is over. You can stop with the empty drops now. There's a nice player 2 spreader for Seawalker. Let's see if he can get another invulnerability. Nope, it's grenades. Let's switch it up. He's got the head popped off. Now he's got lobbers. This ought to get him to final form, and it does. Still got about a third of a clip left. He'll need another weapon, of course. Gets the grenades. Still might need another weapon after that. He's got a refill on the grenades. Oh, some nice artful dodging there to not get run over by Mutoid Man there. He was trolling. Unfortunately, he needs one more weapon. This should do it, and it does. That was a solid Mutoid Man performance there from Seawalker, but he'll be down 2-0 in this best of 5. Firebroth has definitely played the arenas better, and he's had some better luck on the Mutoid Man fight. You got to give him props where props is due. His arena gameplay has been good. Hasn't been perfect, but his arena gameplay has been good. Seawalker just got off to a real rough start. Didn't get an orb until very late in that match. Firebroth was pretty much in control the entire time. So now this is a must-win for Seawalker. He's going to have to pull off a reverse sweep if he wants to advance to the next round. Otherwise, it's going to be Firebroth taking on Jackamus in the second round of the second chance bracket. This is the only match for tonight, but there are going to be other matches coming up later this week. Let me just take a quick look here. Currently, we have at Wednesday, we don't have a current time for it, but sometime Wednesday, we've got Telio 1 taking on Dark Lord Gonzo, and that's going to be a second round winners bracket matchup. And we're also going to have at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, J-Pop for Life taking on Superman. That is also a second round winners bracket matchup. Implications here. So we take a look at the matchup. Dark Lord Gonzo, Telio 1. Whoever wins takes on Tetsuo in that winners quarterfinals. And for the Superman J-Pop for Life, winner of that match takes on some guy by the name of Brysolf. I have no idea who that is, but I hear he's pretty good. So those are the matches we've got coming up on Wednesday night. Again, we don't have an official time on the Telio 1 Dark Lord Gonzo match, but it will be sometime on Wednesday. So here we go with game number 3 between Seawalker and Firebroth. They both have their razor shield manipulations. All right, so Seawalker able to avoid the nuke there. Seawalker was hoping for spawns on the north, but I'll tell you what, he has the hole shot this time. He is ahead of Firebroth. So a good opener there for Seawalker. He's got a mid 41 versus a low 42. I'd say about a 3/4 of a second lead for Seawalker. Unfortunately, he has reset his timer by accident, so it'll be a little bit tough. We're just gonna have to rely on Firebroth's timer. Opening drop orb for Firebroth. Seawalker gets a spreader, now gets a rocket to go with the razor shield. So this should at least help him stay afloat here and collect power-ups. Now here's an orb for Seawalker. Is that a problem with the razor shield? It is not. He's able to grab the orb there. Wanted to ride out the rockets as long as he could before picking up the orb. It's a 124 for Firebroth. Seawalker is definitely in the running. He's got a 129, about a 5-second lead to start Eat My Shrapnel. Ooh, that was getting a little dicey there for Seawalker, but he cleans up the mess. Good job. He's just got to watch out for the shrapnel. Looks like he's got everything under control. Rockets for Firebroth, but he lost his orb early, so an early mistake here for Firebroth could give Seawalker maybe an opportunity here if he doesn't get a replacement orb. And it looks like just Mr. Shrapnel's left to take out. They're a little bit out of control, though, so he may be bleeding a little time. Firebroth is definitely bleeding some time here. He's got a 2:09. Seawalker's time is a 2:13, so he did gain a second, but neither player had a really particularly good Eat My Shrapnel there. Seawalker with a nuke, going to ignore it, just focus on where he is right now in the middle. Just has to dodge these shrapnels. There's a spreader, could be able to pick this up and is able to do so. Firebroth gets some rockets, which again will keep him afloat. Rockets for Seawalker. Nice drop there, not in the greatest of locations, and now he's gonna try and get back to the middle, but he's not able to do so and he loses his orb. So right now, big advantage for Firebroth, you would think, but he has not gotten a replacement orb since losing it. Things looking dicey kind of for both runners, but I'd say more especially for Seawalker. As Firebroth does get a razor shield, a key for Seawalker is going to be of no help. We might see the swirl of shame on both sides. Razor shield on the feet for Seawalker. Ooh, there's some vitamin R for Firebroth. And there is that swirl of shame for Firebroth. And there it is for Seawalker too. So 326 for Firebroth into the bonus room. He's not going to be pleased about that. Seawalker, though, still in the running with a 334. He is 8 seconds back, and neither player has an orb. But Firebroth does have a third of a clip of rockets, which may be enough to take out the gunners in tank trouble, which could give him a huge advantage. So we'll see how this plays out for Firebroth. He's got an orb waiting for him, and yes, both gunners down. Can he get to the orb safely? He does. Good grab and good kill of the wall gunners there. And a vulnerability for Seawalker, well, he can focus on one of the gunners and maybe take out the second one too. The nuke will definitely help. Down they both go. And Firebroth gets an orb and rockets. Oh my goodness gracious, things looking up for Firebroth. It's coming up Firebroth here in tank trouble, that's for sure. There's an orb for Seawalker, but he kind of, unfortunately, let that purple shirt get there. Too bad, because he would have had a razor shield waiting for him. So big time advantage for Firebroth. It's a 434 into Mutoy, man. Seawalker going to be scrambling here to finish up this room. And he gets shot right in the back there by that tank. Firebroth sees a key, so nothing new in there. So he'll have a chance to get this ball buster here. Let's see if he can convert that, get that 42% worth of damage. And yes, ball buster is successful for Firebroth. He gets a spreader, he'll have to manual it. And with a gunner up front, that's gonna be tough to manual, and he gets vibrated and run over. Seawalker with a 508 An empty drop there for Firebroth, though. Seawalker still has a shot here. He's very much in the running, even with Firebroth getting a ball buster there. The first arm finally pops off. Seawalker, oh, but the swirl, oh, didn't focus on the swirl, and he's not going to be able to get to that lobber either. So he'll have to work on the gunners. Does get a lobber there. Lobber for Firebroth with another lobber in the bottom left waiting for him as the second arm now pops off. Still one gunner attached on Seawalker's side. Trying to get it down, but it is not getting down. But hey, a spreader chance for Seawalker. Problem is that gunner is still attached, so once the invulnerability runs out, that's going to be a factor. So the first arm pops off, the second arm pops off. He'll pick off the grenades, get the gunner down, and Seawalker's still in this, but the ribcage exposed right now for Firebroth. He's got lobbers. Seawalker can't get to those lobbers as he is mother hen. Head pops off now for Firebroth. There's a spreader, but it's in a player 2 spot. I don't think he'll be able to get to that. He's trying, but yeah. If he wouldn't have been blocked, he might have had a shot at that spreader there. No, that is just painful. That invulnerability would have paired beautifully. Instead, it's going to be final form now for Firebroth. He is in the catbird seat, looking to sweep this one. An empty drop for Seawalker. The writing is on the wall, ladies and gentlemen. Just needs one more good weapon. This is going to do it for Firebroth. And it will be Firebroth sweeping this match 3-0 and moving on to the next round to take on Jacquemus Wedge. Seawalker had a shot there. He got to within a form. There's a spreader, but unfortunately it's too late. He'll get the head popped off. He's not going to be able to get to that spreader, I don't think. Oh, he could have if he didn't get blocked. Another block. 4, 3, 2, 1. Same level 3. Final form now for Seawalker. Now, what could have been, he might have had a PB opportunity if he didn't get trolled by Troll Toy Man, but that's what Mew Toy Man does best. You're on PB pace, you ain't going to get that chance. See if the spreader is enough to finish the job. It is indeed for Seawalker. Valiant effort today, but it will not be enough. Firebroth moving on to the second round of the second chance bracket. He'll be taking on Jacquemus Wedge. And unfortunately for Seawalker, it is the end of the line for him in the 8th annual Super Smash TV tournament.